The new Alienware R13 and 14 share a ton of the same features, including the new cryo-tek case or chassis with 87% better cooling, the new motherboard with about 5 substantial upgrades or revisions over the previous version, and that sleek new cosmetic design. However, there is a ton of confusion between the differences of the R13 and 14, and I see a lot of first-time PC buyers scooping up the R14 because, well, bigger number, better rig, right? It is actually the R13 that is substantially more future-proof due to having 2 much better components that won't require an upgrade as quickly as the R13. Let's get it. Now, much like previous Alienware Aurora R Series desktops, the R10 and 14 are based on AMD Ryzen CPUs, and the R11, 12, and 13 are based on Intel CPUs, with the progressing generations of each. However, the R13 and 14 are completely different rigs than the previous R9 through 12. I have made a separate video going over all of the substantial as well as minute details. That video is linked in the description below, and I strongly recommend that if you are in the market for an Alienware Aurora desktop that you watch that video first. However, this video has absolutely nothing to do with the battle between AMD Ryzen CPUs and Intel CPUs. Sharing my screen over here, I am on the Alienware website. The brand spanking new off the dealership floor Aurora R11, he means R14, I got you in post-editing, big dog, uses the same AMD Ryzen 9 series that is in the R10. That's an old CPU, sweetheart. Now the R11, which by the way I am on a fully customized and case-swapped R11 right now as we're screen recording, is a 10th generation Intel CPU. The R12 is an 11th generation, and you guessed it, the R13 is a 12th generation. Now, as PC technology is constantly evolving and processors become outdated every year, having the latest and greatest generation of a processor makes it a lot more future-proof, but it doesn't end there. As you can see, all the variants or configurations of the R14 are still running on single-channel DDR4 RAM, the same thing that you're going to see on the R10. And out-of-the-box RAM that you can purchase from Dell and have delivered in your Alienware PC caps out at 3200 MHz. Granted, you can go over that by engaging XMP in the BIOS, which should be engaged by default, and then jumping into ACC, which is Alienware Command Center, and overclocking your RAM. Now, the R13 is running the latest and greatest technology of RAM, which is dual channel DDR5, meaning each stick is technically dual channel. So if you have 2 sticks of RAM in there, you're on quad channel. Now, DDR5 technology is currently around 50% quicker than what we've seen with DDR4. However, when motherboard BIOSes and software start being properly optimized for DDR5, it is estimated that it will be up to 165% faster than DDR4. Now, granted, a weird little quirk with Alienware is the fact that their DDR5 RAM caps out at 4400 MHz, when the industry standard for DDR5 is 4800. Now, as weird as that is, it is not a hardware limitation from the motherboard, it's actually a software block. So eventually, with a firmware update or patch, hopefully Dell will unlock these speeds to be able to meet that minimum standard. However, 44 MHz is still a whole heck of a lot better than 32, especially because AMD Ryzen CPUs benefit from fast RAM more than Intel CPUs. They actually run faster and more efficient with quick RAM. That is why I always recommend to Ryzen gamers to overclock their RAM. Safely, of course. So those are the 2 relatively major reasons why the R13 is actually a better PC than the R14. If you're buying a pre-built PC, you most likely don't want to get in there and tinker, or maybe you do like to build PCs, but you just want to get your hands on the latest and greatest CPU and GPU, and you don't mind swapping components down the road. Either way, if you're paying that large upfront cost, you might as well be as future-proof as possible by having the latest generation of CPU and the latest standard of RAM. Granted, they're capping it at a weird speed. Now, having said that, the R14 is still an amazing beast that is still using that new cryo-tek chassis or case with 87% better cooling than the R9 through R12 lineup. You're still getting that new motherboard, which has a slew of new features, which again are listed in that video that I do recommend you watch in the description below. There's probably 5 or 6 new features on that motherboard that the previous generation did not have. A bunch of new ports on the front I/O, 55% more surface volume or space inside the actual internals of the case, which is not only great for cooling, but also for working in there. Both are tremendous rigs, but at the end of the day, and doing substantial research, it was the R13 that got my money. If you enjoyed this quick tutorial, liking the video will help it to get seen by more potential Alienware owners, so this information will reach and assist them as well, hopefully before they lock in one of these PCs and then have instant buyer's regret because they didn't know the difference between the 2 models. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and honest gaming peripheral reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.